These are the 5 shapes that I'll be using in this construction and the ones in this set of videos. So the 5 shapes, they're from the Al Girih family of patterns, and Al Girih means mother of patterns. The word Girih is used to describe Islamic geometric patterns, and in itself it literally means knots, but patterns are a more useful translation. So we're going to just use 5 of them, and the names in Farsi often relate to other languages in the region, so you might have an overlap of vocabulary from Urdu or from Arabic and so on. So the first shape is Shams, and that means sun. The next one is Turanj, and this one is a Turanj Kond, which means obtuse angled Turanj, and Turanj means citron. So you can also get an acute angled Turanj. And just a reminder, in case you haven't been to school for ages, acute and obtuse. Acute means an angle between 0 and 90 degrees, a right angle, and obtuse means an angle between 90 and 180 degrees. So this shape, a pentagon, is called Bunj. Bunj literally means 5, and a little bit more descriptive would be a Punj Kond. So therefore you can see the word Kond being used to describe the 5 angles that are all obtuse. Next we have the tabla. I'm sure I'm saying that in my Urdu accent, but that's the word we use for drum in Urdu as well, and that's what it's called in Farsi. And finally, surmadan. Again, because it's like a language I'm familiar with, the vocabulary, I often say it like a Pakistani. I'm sure there's better ways of saying it if I was a native Farsi speaker. So these 5 shapes I've got here in my puzzle set, and this is from girihpuzzle.com, and you can construct so many patterns using them just by playing with the shapes, or you can construct them as I've done here using this page in Daud Sutton's Islamic design book. It's right at the end, this page, and it's really fascinating. It's got the construction and then the shapes you can obtain from those constructions, and then some further shapes in the vocabulary, halves and quarters of these 5 shapes, but then all of this lot can be constructed from that limited vocabulary. So it's really powerful. And if you think about it, it's only 5 shapes here. If I open the rest of the set, there's 4 more in the set, and there's many more in the whole Al Girih family. So therefore the potential is huge, and we're just touching upon it. There's quite a few practical things in this video. The first of which is taking the compass point and taking any previous master copy of a tenfold division you've got and piercing holes of a radius of your size through to the paper underneath, and that allows you to then just get on with drawing the things you need for the 5-fold rectangle. So you can have an outcome like this, which is a small version of the 5-fold rectangle. And to get the whole, we need to do 2 things. The first thing is we can take a rectangular tracing. So literally the 5-fold rectangle, you will copy it onto tracing paper, and then by using a folded bit of tracing paper, get the mirror reflection. And then this is the complete tile. You also need to make sure you rotate it when you transfer it, but basically this tracing paper can be used repeatedly. So that's the first one, the rectangular tiling from this. But if you chop it in half to get the minimal triangle for this pattern, that allows you to do a circular tiling. So I'll show you how to do that as well. So you've got the triangle, which is half of this rectangle, and by again folding it to get its mirror reflection, you can then transfer the pattern around a point, so a little bit differently, to get a circular tiling. And I love this connection that from this we can do quite a few things. So this is my first and this is my second. So it's the same pattern, okay, it's the same tile that we used, this one, and I've painted this previously. I tried to do them in the same color schemes so I wouldn't get confused, and I even cut this one as a circle. It was really fun. One thing you might notice is the shapes are very big, and I used a radius I think of 8 centimeters on these and 7 centimeters on these. So even when you use a small radius and have this small tile, remember, because it's a quarter of the pattern, everything's going to be that bit bigger. So if you want to scale it down either using a photocopy or something else, I reckon you might want to do that. Anyway, so these are my 5. You may have a number of circles that you've divided into 10, either drawn on, small, large, whatever it may be. You could reuse a construction by piercing the holes you need. Let me show you from this one what you could do. So this circle has been divided into 10. Now the radius I'm going to suggest for the tile is 7 centimeters, and that is small, especially for dividing into 10 and therefore do all the shenanigans with. So what you can do is draw on an existing reliable master copy. So I'm just putting this sheet behind it, holding it up to the light so I can see that it's straight and flat, and then piercing what I need. So the sheet underneath, I'm going to transfer the divisions I need using my shouldered point, and with the gentlest of touches I'm going to do all 10 of the divisions plus the horizontal. And what you can do is kind of end up reusing your master copy again and again. And when you look at the artisan and craftspeople who did these things, there were so many practical ways they got around it. So let's put in the things we need. And we can draw the lines and we can draw in the circles. I'm going to draw the lines first. It's really good for me and my dodgy eyesight because I can feel the points rather than have to see them. And you can even hear it. Can you hear it when it goes dunk dunk? That's the technical noise it makes when it goes into the divot. Oh, that was 3 dunk dunk dunks. Oh, I think that one missed it a little bit. So that one, I think it missed it a little bit. So what I'm going to do is just erase that line. And because I've got nothing to kind of underline grid to save or look after, me fixing it is even easier. And I want to hear the 1, 2, 3. And having a gap in the middle is not an issue at all. And then this I want to open up to 7 centimeters. Cool. And so the first thing is our rectangle, and it's joining 1, 2, 3, and 4 points. We need to have certain lines on this rectangle, and we need to have a center in 2 of the corners. So this will be my center and this will be my center. And the shamsa, or the star that will be reoccurring in these patterns, will have their centers on the centers. So first thing we need to do is divide this corner into 5 equal angles. And to do that, we're going to use the markings on the circle. So firstly, connect the center to this marking over here. And you don't need to go all the way to it. Line it up and then stop at the rectangle. And what we're doing here, imagine rotated, we're going to do at the bottom left. So this one is going to connect to this. And these 2 we are going to join to one another, making sure they go through the center. And this line that I've just drawn, it's like a rotational line of symmetry. So every time I turn it around, you'll see the same thing. Every time I turn it 180 degrees. And the pattern, whatever it does here, will do here. But it's not a mirror reflection. This will not land on this. I fold along it. I need to somehow rotate around this point, and this line serves as the barrier. Next thing we're going to do is put in the other division. So this small angle is exactly what we need. It's 1/5 of 90 degrees, and this is 2/5 and this is 2/5. So we need to split it in half. But we're going to line up with this point at the bottom, so this point over here. But rather than go all the way, this line that I've said is the kind of dividing line is where we're going to stop. So we'll do that once, and we'll use this one to do it twice. So if you look at the top half, can you see it's all divided equal into 5 sections? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if we do the same to the bottom, and now we've got two things we can line up. We can line up the point on the circle, and we can also line up where it should meet its partner. And there it is. We have everything we need for our super powerful fivefold rectangle. From this, with the addition of circles and then further lines, we can draw many patterns, and we're going to start off with one of them. Now, the circles that we are going to need, this first distance is 1/10. Now, what you will find, and I found this pretty much every time I do this, and it's almost tear-inducing, is it doesn't seem to hit all the points perfectly on mine. And so therefore, I'm going to show you where it should hit. So it should hit once, twice, 3 and 4 times. Okay, so I'm going to go for it because it's hitting at least 1, 2, 3 up there. It's not quite hitting there. And then let's do the same at the bottom. So I'm not going to change the radius. Whatever I found has to be the best fit and used both times. Once you've got those 2 circles, notice I only did them on the corners marked center. We're going to do another one. So look at this radial line. So that's the horizontal, first, second one down, and I want to find this distance. And if I go in from the vertical, it's the first one in and this distance. And then this should be the same as this distance. So from the horizontal, second one up, from the vertical, first one in. And we need to open up our compass to this point. So now it's got 4 points it needs to hit. And the same sort of taking care that it does. Okay, so we're going to draw that in on both sides. And we have everything we need for this pattern. So this is where I'm going to use the tracing paper. And this is where I'm going to get really practical. So this is half of an A4 sheet of tracing paper. I'm going to fold it in half. And I'm going to really press down on this fold using my nail. And when I open it up, I want it to sit like a mountain. So this is a mountain fold, as opposed to it sitting like this, opened up like a valley fold. So we want to have it as a mountain fold, and then really flatten out that crease that we've put. So you want to make it a very strong crease, but you want to allow it to sit flat. And this crease has to be lined up as carefully as possible with one side of your rectangle. This is where I switch to a soft 2B lead. And the first thing, the really important thing, is to mark the corners of the tile. So this 5-fold rectangle, its corners need to be strongly marked on this paper. And I'm going to put a little C for center in the 2 corners that are C for center, because this will be important later. Now the first line we're going to do, if you can see, there's the circle, and we're going to go from the outer circle to the inner circle, long straight line, and then inner circle to outer circle. And you should see it's parallel. Now we're going to put one in going this direction, and it's already a line from the underlying grid. So it goes from the inner circle on the top right to the inner circle on the bottom left, going through the center. Next thing is, we've got this idea that we're going to bounce between the circles to get our shamsa, or our star. So imagine this has gone from the out to the in, to the out to the inner, to the outer. So we're going to use that, and what happens when we do that is it lines up with this intersection here. So you've got 1, 2, 3 intersections to line up as carefully as you can. And then this lines up with this, and it also lines up with this intersection on the edge. So there's lots of intersections to line up. Okay, let's do the other side. And then from the inner to the outer to this intersection, line them all up. And then finally, to complete, we're going to join this to this, and then this to this. So we have 1/4 of the pattern. So what we're going to do with this tracing paper, let's have a look. So remove it from here and get another piece of paper. And notice I drew on one side of the mountain fold. I'm now going to fold it and draw on the other side. The masking tape might interfere, so just remove that. And once it's folded, the first thing you want to do is the corners. And then as carefully as you can, trying to be a little bit continuity focused. I don't know what that line was going to be. You're going to draw what you see on the other side. And this is why it's really important to do this on another piece of paper, because the lead is now facing the paper. Just check you've got it all. And if you have, let's turn this over so you can see. You should have a nice continuity at these joints. And now you've got half of the pattern that will make a rectangle. So we're going to transfer this, and you need both of them. This one, it needs its reflection. So I'm just using the A4 on the A3 watercolor paper so I can see where my middle is. A very soft line, and then you can measure and mark its center. So you now need to make sure it's lead face down, so the C's should be back to the front. And as you line it up, these 3 crosses should all sit on the horizontal line. And nothing should move. Okay, the trusty spoon. Now if you prefer, I'm going to be a little bit different to my usual. If you prefer to transfer by drawing on top, you can just literally go over every single line very carefully and firmly, and it will transfer as well. So this isn't a dictatorship. You can do it as you please. And they come out a lot more firmly. But because of the way I paint, I don't want them too firm. So sometimes it's my own preference for just a hint of the line. And plus it's so quick. Okay. So I'm going to turn it upside down. And this is where the lines need to meet. The crosses need to line up and the pattern. So be very mindful of both of those. And if you've got a nice accurate drawing, then they will. If not, I suggest, you know, carry on, and you can always align things afterwards with a ruler. Don't forget the crosses. But I now have the final that I'm after. And it was all done by only drawing a quarter and then using tracing paper. I'm not going to get rid of the pencil lines. I'm going to leave them be. But I am going to outline the whole thing and get rid of my guidelines. The line that is definitely not part of the pattern is this horizontal line. So that's why I always try to do it very, very faintly. And everything else is needed in the pattern. So I will get rid of these dark lines. So it's nice and faint for me to paint over, because they will be erased fully once it's painted and dried. Now from this same drawing, we're going to get the circular tiling as well. So what I'm going to do is fold them together. I'm offsetting the tracing papers a little so that I can secure them with the masking tape, and that kind of helps keep everything in place. It's really important that you pick the triangle the right way up, that it has the shumsas, the C for centers on each corner. If you did it upside down, this would not work. So the first thing is we're going to put in a very gentle line for the triangle, and I'm going to mark the crosses a little bit more firmly. I'm going to include this one as well, because anything that helps line up the pattern is a blessing. And so everything inside of this triangle I'm now going to outline. So 2B on my tracing paper. Okay, so if I lift off one little bit, we now have a triangle that will fit around one point 5 times to give you the circular pattern. So let's transfer this next. Okay, so this time, same approach. I'm kind of using the paper I've just had and lining up with the side. Should we try that again? A bit shady. So this is the tracing I'm going to be using. I want you to kind of have a look at what's happening before you start pasting it down. So firstly, this bit is the center and this will be the outer part. And if I just put it down for a moment, so that's my middle. Notice what happens when I take it round. Can you see how close to the top that point is? And this flat side isn't as close. So your center isn't actually the center of the paper. The flat side, if you can line it up so it gives you a decent gap, so that's about a couple of centimeters, by the time you rotate it up there, it'll be a couple of centimeters as well. So this is one to be careful of. The other thing you're going to be careful of is whether it will go around 5 times with an evenness and meet back here. And what I found people doing, it was so funny. Somebody did it and they had a massive gap right at the end. I'm like, what did you do? Our first tile isn't the problem. It's the 4th and 5th ones that are the problem. So let's get one down and then we'll kind of set it up to help ourselves in a sec. Okay, so this one's transferred, and what you can do, and it requires a little bit of a gentle touch, is just kind of plan what's going to happen on the other side. So I'm just going to extend this line a little here and a little here, and it'll give me some guidelines. This isn't exactly what we'll be using, but you'll see how they'll help in a second. So this one, the next one, so the center has to stay at the center, and then this one has to meet the existing side. And I'm going to do a little bit of planning. So I'm going to put that cross down, and then I'm going to turn it around again and see if it meets nicely. And what it should do is meet, this corner should meet the top. Okay, so one, it straddles the middle, then another one, and then another one. And see that extra line I put underneath? It should land on top of this cross. Okay, I think that'll be fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this one in. So a little bit of planning, a little bit of taking care, and you can get a really decent one. It's not easy. I do this sort of thing a lot, so I've become better at it, and sometimes I think that can be a little bit misleading, and things appear easy, but actually they're a little bit tricky. Okay, that's fine. And so many alignments to align. Oh my days. There we go. Sometimes just a little smidgen here, a little smidgen there, and all is good. I'm going to do the little plan ahead again, just to check whether I can spot any potential gaps. So that seems to be lining up fine there. So I'll just put the little cross in. And then if I take it off and rotate it, will it be, the key will be, is it going to fit in there? Oh yes, it does. Okay. Your tracing may not last all 5. Look how mine's curling up. So that shows you how hard I was pressing. For this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to outline it in pen. So I'm going to outline in metallic pen. Just on the side, I'm checking that it's flowing, and it is. When I use my ruler, I'm going to turn it upside down so that there's a gap. These marks, I'm just going to lighten them a little by using a putty eraser. Okay, so okay, so that's the outside done. Now all the lines going across the different tiles I can now do in one go, so then they can be lined up even better because of this drawing across the whole diagram. And now with a putty eraser I can erase everything I don't need. So it's painted and I wanted to go for a shady fady look, but say you don't like the way it's dried, say this bit here, just get a wet brush and basically reblend, and as long as you do the whole shape and give it a nice blend so that the pigment lifts off, you should be able to get it as you wish. So I just wanted a little bit more evenness, but I'm not really bothered by the unevenness. I like it, but just as a thing to share, I think it's worth knowing you can revive things. But I quite like it. It's like weirdo oceans. And then miraculously I arrive at this. I don't know quite what happened. I got carried away with metallic marker pen, so I did a slightly darker pink wash in the middle and then a slightly lighter one. But yeah, this is it. So I look forward to seeing what you do with the videos on the old social media. Do have a look at the web page, but basically enjoy.